According to the government's 2023 figures, home energy use accounts for around 20% of the UK's carbon emissions. From installation to electrification, the choices we make at home are shaping the climate story. Today we're digging into what really makes a difference. Hi, I'm Curly Steve, and we're searching for a greener room. Stephen Murphy helps people make sense of the mess. As a low-carbon energy advisor, he spends his days helping households cut emissions, save energy, and navigate the chaos of grants, upgrades, and choices. Today we talk about what really works and what doesn't, and what carbon means in the context of our home. Hi Stephen, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Steve. It's great to be here.
So tell me, you grew up in South Africa. Tell me a little bit about that.
Quite an interesting upbringing. I was kind of on that transition phase of coming out of apartheid. So we went from that kind of, very much within a very oppressive apartheid life. Where as a kid, you're just living your life and, thinking that this is just the way the world works. And then everything gets flipped on its head and you're kind of looking through, have to see everything through a completely different prism. Quite interesting place socially to be living through that. But also, being in Durban, really nice beaches, great surrounds, lots of nature everywhere, just so green. Anywhere you go, it's trees and monkeys and birds and like lots of wildlife everywhere. So we sort of grew up just surrounded by nature all the time. Really good waves. We were talking about this earlier.
Yeah, that must be quite a sort of the yin and the yang there. The apartheid on one side and the nature on the other. You say you didn't sort of notice this massively as a child, or?
Not massively. I mean, I would have been how old was I? Sort of 12, 13 in the transitionary period. So just starting to become aware of the world and, how it was all shaped, and state control of media and all aspects of your life, kind of very much controlled what you were able to understand about the world and what you couldn't. My parents weren't massive activists, so I suppose I wasn't so aware of a lot of the atrocities and stuff that was going on. And then growing up in a world where everything's been turned on its head and everything's different and you're trying to, realign ideologies and kind of thing, it was, quite, it's only as you get older, you start to unpack a lot of the stuff as well.
Yeah, I can imagine. So tell me about your surfing journey. When did that start?
Well, in Durban, I used to body surf and bodyboard actually. And, you'd just be down the beach most weekends. It was kind of just where life happened. Mostly being too hot.
Yeah.
It's really easy surfing in Durban because you just walk to the end of the pier and then you jump off and you're at backline.
And you're talking quality surf over there, aren't you?
Yeah.
I mean, how does it compare to British
All you have to do to get a good wave is arrive early.
Right.
So before the easterlies start coming in at about 7, so you get to the beach for about 5:30. There's a wave.
And many people?
Not then. And surfing was a lot less popular. It's kind of, nowadays it'll be a lot more busy, especially considering how, you just jump off the pier at backline, catch a 4-foot barrel, and then you could either get out and walk back along the pier and jump in backline, or there's a rip next to the pier, which I've actually made it out without having to do anything.
Yeah, for
like
sure.
Sat on my board, it just pulled me to the side, pulled me out the backline, and just jump back on.
And what about sort of other waves along that coast? You've got sort of Jeffreys Bay there, known as one of the longest right-hand waves in the world.
Yeah. It's it's not just down the road. We're talking 1,000 miles.
Is it that far?
Yeah,
Is it
really
right?
is.
Okay.
Yeah, it's quite far. It's a big country. What people don't do with the UK is overlay the size of the UK to the size of South Africa. They sort of tend to look at them, on an A4 page, here's the UK, and then you get an A4 page and look at South Africa, whereas they're vastly different in scale. But yeah, just yeah, all the way, all the way along that coast, you just got really fantastic surf because you've got access in this kind of open ocean bringing swell in.
Yeah.
So yeah, places like J Bay. The first time I went to J Bay, actually, we were sort of driving past this, and we pulled into just somewhere we didn't really know what it was, and we sort of stopped to go and have a look at the waves, and there were these massive barrels coming through. There was only one surfer out there, and he was just getting in these huge, like, stand-up barrels like that. And then a pod of dolphins came past, and they were all just coming up and kind of showing him how it's done, and surfing next to him, and then breaking out the back of the waves before they broke and stuff. It was just quite spectacular, and it's that real presence of the power of nature.
How do you feel about the sharkiness of it? Because that's quite a sharky area, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's like you grow up with them and they're just around. No one that you know has ever been, well, I say that one of us living in Nature's Valley, someone did get eaten by a shark in Plettenberg Bay, which kind of cleared the water for a while.
Yeah.
But that was the only experience I'd really known about sharks. They like, is this statistic? We might have to double check this, but I think more people get killed by beach balls.
Well, it's funny you should say that. I went on a trip to, before I went to J Bay, I went on a trip to California, and it was into the Red Triangle. And the Red Triangle, apparently the most sharkiest area in the world. And, I had very good friends saying to me, "Oh yeah, enjoy the sharks," which was very pleasant of them. But I did a bit of research, and I think you're more likely to get struck by lightning than you are to actually get sort of bitten by a shark. So, and when you drive down the Pacific Coast Highway, you're seeing beach after beach after beach with maybe 10, maybe 50 surfers in each beach.
Yeah.
And this is day in, day out, and there's only a couple of attacks per year or something like that. So
they're pretty scary things, to be honest. If you're there with just your feet dangling and looking rather similar to a seal, they don't want to eat you. They kind of taste you and then spit you out because it tastes like rubber.
Yeah.
And I discovered once it really is a numbers game. When there's 10 of you in the water, you're like, I'm fine. And then they all catch a wave in and suddenly you're own.
Yes, absolutely.
I had that once when I was surfing just up the coast from Durban. And it was a British guy actually who was coming out the water like looking a bit scared, and he was like, "Oh, I've just been surfing. I think I saw a fin." And I was like, "Sharks, don't worry about that." I asked the guy in the car park. He said, "No, don't worry about it. It's fine." So I was like, "Come, let's go back out again." And then we paddled back out. We're kind of sitting at backside kind of thing, and then he caught a wave in, and suddenly I was like, "Oh, wait a second, that's that." Suddenly don't feel now, went from a 50-50 chance to 100% chance that if anyone was gonna get taken, it'd be me. So I thought, I wasn't really enjoying it so much anymore.
Yeah.
And then I caught the next wave in, and then went to to have a drink at the local bar or whatever, and was mentioning just I was like, "Guys, still worried about sharks." They were like, yeah. There's loads of sharks. There's a river mouth. It's a big collection of like tiger sharks zone.
And they'll have a nibble, won't they?
They'll have a nibble. Yeah, they will. They're renowned for just basically eating anything. Anything that washes out. That's why they like the murky water from the river.
Yeah.
Because they'll just have a go.
So I was sitting at J Bay there, and I think there was only sort of 8 or so people in the water, and they'd all caught waves in.
Yeah.
And I was just left out there on my own, and suddenly all these fish darted past me. And I sort of thought to myself, there's a reason why they're running away from something, and sort of I slowly lifted my feet out of the water. But it can be sort of you can suddenly get the old get the heart going, can't you? In that situation,
it was Mick Fanning that
it was, wasn't it? Yeah.
He's like, "Oh,
yeah." Yeah, that was. I was watching that live. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, for those who don't know, Mick Fanning was surfing a heat in the WSL or whatever it was at the time, surf contest, and a shark came along and he had to punch it on the nose, didn't he?
It's like ultimate dude.
It was quite a moment. Yeah, quite a moment in surfing history.
Came up to come give him a little sniff, and he gave it a bop on the nose. Sick.
So tell me, Stephen, you've been working in sustainability for some time now and
Yeah.
campaigning and stuff. What got you into sort of the need to save the planet?
Um, well, as I say, when I was like growing up and you're sort of surrounded by nature and you can really feel the power of it in Africa. It's very present. It's very much there. I kind of had a sort of alternative ideology that I developed when I was at university, largely due to one of my lecturers, Dennis Purvis, who was quite alternative. Just got me thinking in a different way, studying marketing and advertising. So we started looking at consumerism and how damaging it was for society and environment and mental health and those kind of things. We got into a lot of ad buster stuff. And then you had films like Fight Club came out, and they're talking about, no, you know, not your car keys, you're not your watch, you're not how much money you have in the bank. So those kind of ideas sort of milling around in my head. I was doing a bit of that kind of ad busters, alternative culture stuff in Durban. And then I came across to London, and I distinctly remember being in the plane, and it was quite cloudy, and we were coming over, and then we just dropped below this low cloud, and just saw this expanse of city and concrete and grey, and just, you know, just the sheer like churning nature of it really made me realize quite, you know, you really get a sense of understanding about how nature's being threatened and how, you know, the consumerist lifestyle of people and that can be affecting it when you see it on that kind of scale.
So how long ago did you come to, how long ago was that when you came to? 2002, so 20 odd years ago. And that must have been quite a contrast coming from South Africa, which is, like you say, there's lots of wildlife everywhere, to, was it London you went to straight away?
London,
and you stayed there for
straight into London, and I distinctly remember like being excited looking out and then just seeing this expanse. It was just as far as I could see, it was just city. And then, you know, oh wow, yeah, this is quite something. It felt like this sort of churning mass of people and energy and stuff.
And it's a very different kind of energy, isn't it? That it's quite a still energy, isn't it, London? It's quite sort of lots of concrete, lots of not so much green areas.
I mean, lots of life and culture and, you know, interesting things happening. I mean, I did really enjoy my time there. But yeah, it's, you know, then I, you know, got involved with a Greenpeace local group and started doing actions with them, like the community group actions, and then started doing stuff with the head office, got a bit more involved that way, and kind of, you know, that's the sort of pathway into sustainability and environmentalism. Kind of spent my 20s in London doing, you know, all the big world stuff, global policy, international climate talks. I spent some time working on COP17 and COP15 actually. COP15 was at Copenhagen. I was working on that as well.
What were you actually doing for those events?
COP15, I was working for Christian Aid, and they were the first of the global development charities to have come on board with climate change and saying that basically climate change is a threat to all of our development work. They were looking at everything that they were doing, all the good work that they were doing, essentially being wiped out by you know, floods and fires and droughts and, you know, too much rain, too little rain, too hot, too cold. Like, so they went on board quite heavily with that for the Copenhagen COP. And I was kind of brought in, I was hired around that time because I had a lot of sustainability and climate change experience. I was doing a lot of the campaign materials for that. And then for COP17, it was in Durban. So I had this great opportunity to go back to my hometown and be a host to a lot of the, you know, it's this melting pot of activists and policy experts and heads of state and that all coming together to talk about environmentalism. I mean, it was such a great experience to get access to so many really interesting and amazing people, all at the top of their game. And all just come together around a shared theme and ideology. I mean, what was going on in the conference was quite disturbing, as far as it was quite a large kind of business hijacking of the talks.
So
We felt at the time.
sort of greenwashing, or
I think the thing to understand about the talks is that the activists, you're constantly going, now is the time, this is it, we have to take action, it's right now. But you're essentially trying to completely reshape your economy. So everything we built so far is built on fossil fuels. Everything we have, like every part of our society is based on fossil fuels. And now to say we need to create an entirely new society that's not based on fossil fuels, it's going to take time. There's a lot of entrenched vested interests. You know, the fossil fuel companies were the most powerful voices, you know, they had the most money, the most biggest budgets, they were the biggest companies. So then topple them and create this whole new society, it's gonna take a lot of time, and you're gonna have these like inch by inch wins and processes, which I feel we are sort of, you know, we're slower than we need to, if we want to, but the fact that we're going to be able to transform our society so quickly, I think, is maybe misguided.
Yeah,
it doesn't help from a campaigning perspective. You need the big ask, don't you? Like, action now. We have to solve this. Now is the time. I think that was the phrase of the campaign I was working on, was now is the time.
Yeah.
But you're not going to achieve that at that meeting.
And I think a human quality or not is that we want everything now. We want everything yesterday. So it's difficult when someone comes along and says, "Well, actually, it's going to take
what we
time."
need is incremental change.
Yeah.
You know, and we do need fast action, and we did need political will, and we, you know, all of those things. But it was unlikely that we were going to actually get it really fast.
So what motivates you? What keeps pushing you forward?
It's, you know, I've got 2 young kids, Lauren and Juniper Lily, 7 and 4.
Great ages.
Yeah, they're great. And, you know, for them to have a future is really important. And I, you know, maybe it's a bit of a cliche, but, you know, really concerned about what life is going to be like for them. I think something that worries me is the normalization of climate change, and the fact that, you know, I can remember, I'm of an age when I remembered when, you know, it was a certain temperature in summer, it was a certain temperature when it rained when it needed to rain, it was dry when it needed to be dry. Whereas then they were going to have that experience. For them, the weather's a mess. It's too wet, it's too cold. You know, it's nothing happens when it should happen, essentially. And, you know, I do wonder how it affects your ability to deal with climate change when it's not something different. And it's probably not something we're going to be able to get back to a normal weather, say. But so we're not going to get back to a normal weather anytime soon, you know, for centuries. So just a bit unclear as to their understanding of climate change and how it's affecting them, and it's already affecting them. It's already part of their lives. I guess also talking about the motivations is something that if you do it for a long time, things just become normalized.
Well, this is sort of something that I'm hoping that by doing these shows, by talking about it, is people can be environmentally friendly rather than do environmentally friendly. So it's just you wake up in the morning and you do it. You are it. Rather than waking up and going, "Oh, what do I need to do?" You know, and being like a rabbit in the headlights. You just get up and you are one with nature. You know, you are. You
go for a walk in the woods. You do your recycling. You compost. You buy sustainable food. You know, you only fly occasionally. These kind of things are just the way you are. It's not like a big pressure. Like, you know, look at me. I'm an environmentalist. That's what I'm doing. You're just living your life in the world. And it is, you know, it's a lot easier to do now because a lot of those things have become mainstream. You know, we've taken all the low-hanging fruit, and I'll talk more about that when we get into the detail of my work. But those kind of things are quite easy and streamlined. It's staycations are an accepted thing to do. People understand the ideas about not flying everywhere at the drop of a hat. So it does get easier.
Talking about that, how do you feel about contradiction? For example, someone taking a flight for a holiday, or there's that balance between maybe mental health and emotional health, and taking a flight to go on holiday, or having a car to get themselves from A to B, rather than walking because it's maybe too far. So how do you feel about sort of contradiction?
I really enjoyed what Jake was saying in that last previous podcast about the imperfection of people, that we're not perfect. We're not perfect beings. We exist in an imperfect system. You can do what you can and try to live a sustainable life, but you're not always going to get it right. There are things that you are going to want to do that exist in the world that at the moment have a high carbon content. You can try and minimize them. The biggest thing's going to be flying, isn't it? Like, that's the one. I was quite heavily involved with Plain Stupid. I don't know if you've come across them. Way back, they were a campaigning group that were the first group to take on flying as an issue. The direct action group, but then, or their logo and that media stuff. And they were really, taking on the issue of flying and, bringing it into the public domain. And it's such a tough one, because you want to go on holiday, you want to see nice places. Those countries need your
tourism.
And you can go and have a more ethical, sustainable holiday. And there's a lot of countries that rely on you doing that. And my family live in South Africa. They come to visit me. So I would, try and get out to them, and, it's the loft miles. I think with flying, there's a lot of things that you can tackle before you have to start tackling people's, the kind of loft miles and the holiday miles. You've got a lot of business flights are completely unnecessary. We found out over COVID that you can't just have meetings over online. But yeah, I mean, I have a thing I quite like Subarus.
Yeah.
I had a Forester for a while. I absolutely loved it. It's 2-liter turbo engine. It totally in contrast with everything else that goes on in my life. And that's just the imperfections of people. And if we're trying to create an imperfect society, we're probably going to fail.
Yeah.
Because,
So that's a great sort of bit of information there, is to do as much as you can, but not give yourself a hard time if you're,
you can't give yourself, you can, I felt, that didn't feel that great. It was this kind of, what do they call it? Is it cognitive dissonance? Is that it? Where you're able to hold two conflicting views?
Right.
I mean, I see it with children all the time. They can hold two conflicting views without any issues whatsoever.
Excellent.
I mean, flying is going to be the really difficult one, isn't it? It's the one that's always going to be a problem.
Yeah.
And according to our technical officer at CEP, the electrification of planes is going to be a thing that's
coming, isn't it?
It's coming. Yeah, apparently so.
But how far in the future?
It's so hard to fathom the fact that we could get to that point where you have electric planes.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then
Well, apparently we'll have cars that we can put food in to fuel at some stage. Oh no, that's Back to the Future. Maybe.
So,
Yeah.
we just go back in time.
Yeah.
Tell my previous self, stop being such an idiot.
Excellent. So you've been in Cornwall for several years now, and you work with the Community Energy Plus. Tell me a little bit about that and what your role is.
So Community Energy Plus is we're Cornwall's energy advice charity. Kind of offer advice to homeowners, landlords, tenants to help with energy efficiency.
Okay.
And kind of guide them towards a more sustainable future. A lot of the work that we do, the majority of it deals with fuel poverty. there's a lot of people really struggling, especially with a huge rise in energy costs. They're really struggling with their bills to stay on top of the energy use. Having difficulty dealing with suppliers. So we help sort of facilitate a lot of those conversations. We do some grant funding as well, so we help people through the grant funding process. And I work as part of the low carbon team. So the Low Carbon Energy Network, which is a national lottery community fund project, we're working in collaboration with CCAN, which is Cornwall Climate Action Network.
Okay.
And they're a group of organizations, community-based organizations, that are looking to try and generate transformative change in Cornwall around sustainability and climate change.
Okay, so you one of your roles is looking at retrofitting, right?
Yeah.
Explain to me what retrofitting.
So yeah, we help guide people through a rather complicated process of their retrofit journey, which is essentially turning your house into a warm, comfortable, and sustainable space. It can be quite a complicated process because you're looking at the structure of your house, how the energy is supplied, a lot to do with moisture control and ventilation as well.
Which, being in Cornwall, we're looking at a whole load of granite houses, which
Yes.
I've got a 120-year-old granite house, which sounds wonderful and great, and it is.
Yeah.
But it's sweats, it's damp, it's cold, it's
Yeah. I remember moving to Cornwall. I had these visions of the beautiful rural stone cottage, and now after having worked at CUP for a number of years, I'm quite glad I've moved into a new build,
right.
A sort of insulated, warm ventilated property. Because the thing with Cornwall is no such thing as a standard property, but everyone is different. And it's quite complicated trying to figure out what you need to do in order to get it to the point where it is, warm, comfortable, a nice cozy home that also doesn't require lots of fossil fuel energy to heat.
So what's the biggest sources of carbon emissions in the average home?
It'd definitely be heating.
Okay.
I think there's very few instances where heating isn't the major source of carbon emissions. I mean, occasionally you might get some medical equipment or something like that, which might be, people have reptile tanks and hot tubs, but even that's heating. It's still heating. Definitely making sure. I think it's about 18% of the UK carbon emissions are based around heating homes.
That's a lot, right?
It is a huge percentage. It's a very, very important part of climate change that we need to tackle is how we heat our homes. And there are sustainable solutions as we look at the increase in renewable energy supply and decarbonizing the grid. Then there are viable options for heating your home using decarbonized electricity.
So right now, what have we got? We've got coal, wood, gas, electric.
Yeah, most of it is gas.
Right.
Yeah, most of the heat generation comes off gas. Although Cornwall, because of the high proportion of rural properties, is a higher than normal amount of oil. A surprising amount of people still use coal open fires, but it's not a huge. I was surprised at how many people there were, but it's not a huge percentage. So what you do is people are quite accustomed to getting their heat demand from essentially a grid. So you are getting from an external supply rather than having a tank in your back garden.
Although I would imagine that's quite high in Cornwall as well, isn't it?
Oil.
Standalone tanks.
Yeah, that is because we have a large rural population. Quite a lot of and quite a lot of it's off the mains gas grid. And that's where a lot of the government focus is on getting people that are off the mains gas grid, because gas is lower carbon intensity than oil.
Okay.
Oil is quite high carbon intensity. It's, I think, 2 to 3 times what gas is. So what they're trying to do, and the gas is, I know that's where I'm getting a bit mixed up with my electricity generation from gas. But yeah, so a lot of the focus is around the more rural properties and trying to get them off oil first, and then they'll start working on the gas properties.
I'm always fairly astonished by the need for heat in the houses at certain times of the year. You've got I understand in winter, you know, I mean I keep my house at a steady 16 degrees, and anything more than that, I'm sort of sweating. But
Yeah, you spend a lot of time in cold water. So
yeah, well, exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
And I was brought up in a generation where you put on a jumper or put a blanket around you rather than putting the heating on. But it does surprise me. I have friends who will put the heating on in the middle of the summer because they're a little bit cold. And
yeah, people having the homes 30 degrees, then it gets too hot, so they walking around in flip-flops and shorts. And then it gets too hot, so they open the windows. And yeah, that kind of behavioral stuff is quite difficult to challenge. I think we've made big strides forward. When the electricity price just doubled, I think a lot of people really got much more aware of their usage. Plus, an older population does tend to need it to be
absolutely.
because maybe less active, a bit more sedentary. Less able to regulate temperature. You do need warmer temperatures.
And I have to tell my mum every year, she's in her early 80s, I have to tell her every year, put your heating on.
Yeah.
Because she's of a generation where she will sit there a little bit cold before.
Yeah.
But also, that just reminded me that when I was a student, I used to have a pile of blankets by the front door.
Yeah.
And people knew that if they came around in the winter, that they'd pick up a blanket and we'd all sit in there,
Well, which also plays into the quality of the housing, because it is fairly bad. I mean, there's a lot of very, very old housing that's bad insulated, super drafty, still single glazed, and I do find it quite surprising for what is meant to be such a wealthy country, for the state of the housing to be quite where it's at.
Yeah.
I guess maybe in some sort of the Scandinavian countries and that, where your temperatures do get so cold, they're forced to build good insulated houses. Mm-hmm. But where the temperature doesn't drop quite that cold, it's, you, as you say, you have these old granite properties that are damp and cold and really difficult to heat.
Yeah. So tell me, how do you go about sort of decarbonising the average home? What's the sort of first steps?
Insulate is our general mantra. Is you take a fabric first approach to your retrofit journey. We do like to encourage people to really focus on looking at that as your first step, and then once you've insulated a property.
So we could rewind back to first insulate yourself, put a jumper on. Second insulate yourself, put a blanket on. Third, insulate your house. So what sort of how do you insulate your house? Are we talking loft insulation?
There's various ways you can do it. I mean, it's essentially ceiling walls and floors. And
floors
and windows. Floors not so much. I mean, floors are out of a job. You'll just be honest about it. Like unless you're ripping up the floor for another reason, to lay new floors, or you're doing a full retrofit. We don't really find that many people do floor insulation.
I guess you a lot of heat would lose a lot of heat from the concrete floor.
15%.
Right,
somewhere around there. Lofts are fairly simple, because often it's just loft insulation. A lot of lofts were done. It's something you can do DIY, or it's reasonable.
And there was grants available for that a while ago. Is that
There
still
used to be
available?
grants available back in the days when the grant funding was really simple, and they said, "Oh, you got a loft? Yep. Need insulation?
Yeah.
Yep. Right.
Yeah,
There's some
we'll see you
insulation.
tomorrow.
There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah. You come around and do it." So, yeah, you're up to 300 mil of loft insulation.
Is that the number? Is it?
That's the number. Yeah, it's diminishing returns after that. Some people go up to 450 mil, say, but you're only shaving a small amount of heat loss off that. But it's the walls that are the one that are the tricky thing, really, because it's expensive, it's disruptive, it's quite complicated.
Especially if you've got solid walls.
Yeah. Cavity walls are much easier because they just drill a hole and pump insulation in.
Yeah.
So as long as you manage the ventilation, okay, you're doing all right. That's, I don't know, 1,000, 1,500 quid. But for solid wall insulation, externally, you could be looking £20,000.
How do they insulate a wall? Is just like putting a jacket on? Is it like?
Yeah,
what,
essentially,
sticks?
yeah. So they stick insulation on. They'll do a load of kind of moisture control stuff, and then they'll stick insulation on, and then put out a load of render.
And that's on
So
the
they
outside
add-
rather than the
add-
inside.
They could do both.
Okay.
Yeah. So the outside, they put the scaffolding up, and they just go all around the house putting a jacket on, essentially. Internally, you lose about 100 mil.
Okay.
But the advantages of internal is that you can do it piecemeal. You don't have to do it, the whole house in one go. You can pick the coldest room.
I could just say, because I'm thinking about my house, and my lounge would probably be fairly easy to do because there's just a couch in there, and be easy to move out of the way. But my kitchen, it's got cupboards, and
Yeah,
how would you sort of retrofit that? Would you have to take everything?
you would have to take everything out.
Okay.
Yeah. It's taking everything off the walls, adding an extra layer, and then putting everything back on. But it is considerably cheaper to do internal wall insulation. It's less of a specialist job, and you can do room by room
Okay.
and just picking it and doing bits.
And what difference does it? Does it make a noticeable
Huge.
difference?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's that people always talk about a payback. How much are you going to save me on my bills? And that calculation, it takes a long time to save.
Yeah.
For what you're going to do, but you've just got a warm house.
Yeah.
Like for every moment that you're in your house, you're not cold. Like, okay, if you were to take every time you're cold in your house, put 20p in a jar, and then you'll start making the payback pretty quickly because you don't. It's cheaper to heat, but it's also just more comfortable. And considering the way climate change is affecting us, especially on Cornwall, we're going to start seeing much more extreme heat. And we're just not set up for it. We just don't have, people don't have air conditioners. And if your house is insulated, it keeps the cool in.
Yeah.
So
Well, yes.
out.
Yeah.
So if it
I have,
heat out as much as it'll keep the cold out.
I have 2 or 3 foot granite walls.
Yeah.
And as I was saying, in the winter, it's just holds the cold in. But during the summer, it's so nice at the end of a hot day just to go inside because it's always cool.
It's always cool, because you need a very extended heat wave to heat up those those walls.
Yeah.
So it's it's that idea of being comfortable. When you speak to people who have had the insulation done, and that's brilliant.
How about double glazing? What sort of difference does that make? Is that something that's
10 to 15%. I think if your heat has lost through your windows, it does make a big difference. A lot of people have had their windows glazed. I think there's issues with heritage properties and that kind of thing where you're not allowed to. It's very expensive to do. It's a good, it's one of those good, if you were going down the sort of hierarchy, the journey of what things you need to do first, it kind of, the loft is such an easy one because it's, it's cheap and easy. Then potentially your windows, then you got to start looking at the walls.
And then looking at heat within the house. You advise heat pumps, right?
We do. It's kind of the way forward. If you're looking at a completely decarbonized grid, I mean, in 5 to 10 years' time, we're going to have a completely different energy market. In the fact that once even national grid is saying by 2035, we're going to be 100% renewable. And that completely reshapes how we're going to be using and thinking about electricity. So providing heat through electricity is the way things are moving forward. So yeah, we do recommend heat pumps. We do, as part of our, impartial advice for the project, is we make sure that people understand the technology properly, because they do operate different to your gas and your oil boilers. They deliver heat in a different way.
So what is a heat pump?
It's essentially a fridge.
Okay.
It's just it takes heat from the air, ambient temperature outside, and it transfers it to inside the house through a compressor.
Okay.
With very much the same process, and it works according to what people don't understand, or they don't understand, but they forget, is that it works according to the Kelvin temperature scale, which is minus, their zero is minus 273 or something. So there's still heat in the air up until minus 70 degrees. So people say, oh, it's freezing outside. Yes, but there's still heat in that air that a heat pump can extract in order, and then it compresses it through, a bunch of technology, and then puts that heat into your home. So it's basically a transfer of heat from outside the home into the home. And it does it much more efficiently than any other electric heating, because it's a ratio of sort of 3 to 1. So it uses 1 unit of electricity to deliver 3 units of heat. Okay. It's slightly more for a ground source heat pump. I'm talking air to water heat pumps.
Do you advise the air to water or both?
The ground source heat pumps are great. They have a much higher return of heat, but they're much more expensive. You're looking to 20, 30 grand for a ground source heat pump. Air to air is quite good. It takes heat from the air, and then it's basically an air conditioning unit that does heat as well. So they can be quite effective, and they can deliver kind of instantaneous heat, in the sense that you can just sort of turn them off and on as and when you need it.
And what are the changes that need to be made within the house to be able to fit a heat pump? Does it go in your attic or?
A lot of them can plug into existing heat. If you have a wet heating system, which is the radiators, or
like a central heating,
central heating system. It's got a lot of the air to water ones are compatible with that. You probably need to resize the radiators, so you have much larger radiators for a heat pump, and you do need to make space for a hot tank.
How big are they?
They're quite big.
Okay.
Yeah. They're sort of larger than your standard version. The thing with heat pumps is they operate at a slightly lower temperature. So whereas your boilers will pump out, you pump out heat at 60, 70 degrees. Your heat pump operates around 45 to 50 degrees.
Okay.
So that's why they need the larger radiators, because they deliver the heat slower at a lower temperature.
So you'd leave it on all the time?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's a common mistake with people that have heat pumps, treat them like boilers. So they let the house drop all the way down to, however cold it gets, 8 degrees, come home, turn the heat pump on. And then it's really expensive to get it from 8 degrees up to 20.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Whereas for it to run at 16, it's the same with your fridge. For it to keep everything cold in there, it can just tick over. It's only a tiny amount of energy. As soon as you open the door and it will be cold out, then it's got to work, and then it starts using energy to get it back to temperature again.
And you don't turn your fridge off on and off again when you when you want your milk cold.
Yeah. So, and that's where the insulation is so important, because if your house is losing heat faster than a heat pump can provide the heat, then the house never quite gets warm enough.
Yeah, okay.
And that's where, if they have had an install that wasn't done by a certified MCS, that's micro generation certification scheme installer, where they do heat loss calculations and tell you whether the heat pump's going to be able to deliver enough heat to keep the room warm. Then the houses can be cold. And, in the early days of heat pumps, before these, before MCS was involved in that, there were some bad installs where possibly they weren't suitable for the property.
Mm.
They're not suitable for all properties. There's some places that are just might be too expensive to retrofit. And then you need to look at like HVO, which is heating vegetable oil. So you keep your oil boiler, but you have just the more sustainable source of oil.
Right. Interesting. So, is there any finance available for heat pumps?
Yeah, currently there's a grant called the Boiler Upgrade Scheme, which is run by the government. It's a very easy to access scheme. There's no eligibility criteria other than the fact that you're replacing a fossil fuel heating system, and they count a lot of traditional electric heating as a fossil fuel because it uses 3 times as much fossil fuels to heat the home as a heat pump would. And that's $7,500 towards the cost of installing a heat pump. They'll probably cover the cost of the unit itself, and then what you'd be paying for extra would be the tank, pipe work, extra radiators, and labor. If you're replacing an oil boiler, and maybe you need to replace a couple of radiators anyway, or there'd be some pipe work, then it kind of comes out cost parity. It's still slightly more expensive than replacing a gas boiler at the moment. I think if you're taking out a gas boiler, you're probably looking at about £2,000 that you'd have to contribute. It's all sorted out by the installer, so they do all the paperwork, they get the money from the government, and they just bill you for the difference.
And does that last as long as a standard boiler would last, or?
Generally, yes. Yeah, they've started, especially with the heat pumps in Cornwall, they put this special coating on that helps it to survive some of the harsher sea conditions, because they did have a problem with them rusting.
Everything in Cornwall.
Everything in Cornwall. Yes, I know. You just have a look under my car. But yeah, so they've gotten a lot better with the tech there now. So and it's you get a heat pump. It's a different way of thinking about your heating as well, because what it does is it keeps your house at 16 to 18 degrees. So what you have is a warm and comfortable house most of the time. And then if you want it a little bit warmer, then you just top up the temperature.
Okay.
And that's how they're designed to work effectively. If you're going to treat them like a boiler and only turn them on for that light for 1 hour at 6 o'clock when you want a bit of heat, then they start costing quite a lot.
Okay. Yeah. So what are the pitfalls and what should people look out for when retrofitting or upgrading?
I think moisture control is a big one, because a lot of what you're doing when you're retrofitting is you're sealing the box. So especially with a lot of your traditional materials were designed to all work in a certain way in certain layers together so that the walls could breathe. And then often what you're doing with insulation is you're cutting off that breathability and creating a sealed box.
Right.
So you do need to manage the ventilation and moisture control quite carefully, looking at installing vents and heat recovery and moisture control, those kind of things. That is something that people do need to be aware of. In a lot of homes, install all the double glazing and the sealed doors and the draft excluders and all that kind of thing, but you really do need to turn the air over in the house regularly, because you're generating a lot of moisture through showers and cooking and even just breathing.
And drying clothes I was amazed at the amount of water that goes into the air from drying clothes.
3 kilos of water.
That's crazy.
Load. Yeah, it is a huge amount of water. So yeah, moisture management is key. Getting good builders and good installers, and I think is really important as well. Making sure that like your insulation people are SWIGA registered, and your if you're getting any heating done, that they're NCS registered and they're kind of a trusted installer.
Yeah.
Any other pitfalls? I think you could. Just understanding how your heat pump's going to heat your property. If you were underheating your property, which is what a lot of people could be doing, then the heat pump might end up costing you more, because at the moment it runs at cost parity with gas and oil. It should cost about the same, but that's assuming you're delivering the amount of heat that your energy performance certificate kind of states you need for the house, which some people might not be putting that much heat into the house. But a heat pump will give you that constant heat.
Solve is an SEO and web design agency that builds high quality, sustainable websites and strategies to help businesses grow online. They're also B Corp, meaning they're a business for good, making a positive impact while driving real results. As a special offer for our listeners, Solve is offering a free website audit and consultation. Just mention searching for a greener room to claim yours. Next up, we've got your 5 top tips, and we're going to give you 1 minute to talk about each top tip. And Alex is going to be over there with the dinner bell. Your first one is start planning your retrofit journey.
I think, if you are going to make significant changes to your house, to make it a warm and comfortable home, the same way that if you're remodeling your kitchen or redoing your bathroom to make it a nicer space to live in, you're doing a very similar thing to your home. So you do need to think about the process of how you're going to do that and plan how you're going to fund it and what order you're going to do things in. A lot of thinking about that journey is also dealing with the low-hanging fruit, which are the easy things you can do in your house to reduce your energy demand, like draft proofing, say, or turning your thermostat down or changing your light bulbs. A lot of those things we've been talking about for quite a long time. I feel a lot of places, a lot of householders have taken that on board, but there might still be gaps in that journey, which we could help you with some of the more basic stuff, as well as helping you with the rest of the journey.
I'd say that was almost perfect timing there, Stephen. Thank you very much.
And I watch that clock.
So number 2, insulate.
Yeah, we can't talk about this enough, really. It's so important in having a warm and comfortable home that you're going to be able to heat effectively in, is to make sure that you look at the insulation and that you do it properly. Number one, fabric first, and all the conversations we're going to have with people is to start look at the fabric of your building and seeing how you can have it performing better for thermal resistivity. Pretty sure that's
If it's not a word, it is now.
I've just made that. I realize that maybe don't say that enough.
So starting off with Lofts insulation and
you always go for the easy ones first. Don't you? The cheaper ones that you can do quickly and they make a big difference. And then that's the whole thing about planning, is starting to know when and how you're going to do the more difficult job.
And that's something.
On the money.
He's on the money, isn't he? And that's something you can help with. It's the planning. Excellent. So the next one is understand your energy use. Now that's go.
You do need to know where the energy is going in your property. If you are going to try and reduce it and manage it a bit better, it's really good to just have an understanding. A lot of smart meters have an in-home display. If you put that somewhere prominent, I think the statistics says you can save up to 20% on your bills just by being able to look and say, something's on. Why is that costing me 20p an hour instead of 5p an hour, which is my general baseline? So having it somewhere prominent where you can look at it and see what is going on in your house, understanding how you use energy through the year is really important in having a low carbon future, especially with a lot of the new innovative tariffs that are coming in place with the time of use, and there's a glut of renewable energy in the system. You can use loads of energy. When there isn't, you use less.
You've rehearsed these, haven't you? Number 4 is reduce demand.
Very important. It's those things we were talking about. You were saying of a generation where you put a jumper on, so instead of whacking up the thermostat, put an extra layer on. We give out a lot of heated throws. So they're like this beautiful, luxurious heated blankets that are great for if you are still and you're sedentary in the house. You put the heated throw on instead of turning up the temperature. You can allow your ambient temperatures to drop slightly to help reduce demand. And things like removing drafts, changing your light bulbs, and managing use of things like dryers and having energy efficient appliances. It all plays into a wider structural plan to decarbonize our energy use.
Excellent. Quick, ring the bell. Yay! And number 5 there is call CEP and talk to an advisor.
We're here. We're ready to help. We can do phone advice or come see your house and actually see what your situation is and what you need. There's a lot of confusing information out there, and especially with installers who are trying to sell you something. So because we're not trying to sell anything, we can give you impartial idea as to what you need to do when. You'll see a lot of ads on social media for solar panels. And they're all quite confusing as to, how much you could earn, how expensive they are, whether you need a battery or not. There's a lot of misinformation about battery technology. If you're confused about any of that kind of thing, just give us a call, and we will help guide you through the process.
He's good. He is good. And you're free at the point of contact.
Yeah, we're completely free. We don't get any commissions from anyone. We don't have, no kickbacks from installers.
So you're totally independent.
Completely impartial and free advice. Yeah, it doesn't cost anything. And in fact, a lot of the time we can save people loads of money save them from going down an incorrect route.
Excellent. Okay, so next up we are talking about evidence. Yeah. So you've come with 3 bits of evidence today.
Yeah, we'll have to look up my notes for some of them because they're fairly complicated bits of evidence. They're comprehensive in a sense, so I don't want to get it wrong. So.
I have every faith that you're going to ace this. So you've got 30 seconds this time. Yeah. And the first one we're going to talk about is the National Grid Net Zero Community Guide.
So that was, it's a document that's been produced in conjunction with REN and NZCOM. REN is a Wadebridge-based, Wadebridge Renewable Energy Network, and then NZCOM is the Net Zero Community. And it's a guide that helps guide communities to achieve net zero, because it's very important to know how you're going to get to net zero through all aspects of your society, and as a community to have a guiding document to help you through that process. I think it's vital.
Excellent. And that will be available on our website for you to have a look at. The second one there is the Cornwall Climate Care film, Power to the People. I do actually feature in it. So there you go. Biased.
But that whole range of films are just really, really great looks at environmental issues within Cornwall. Very, very well done. The arguments are all very clearly set out, using local people and local issues. The Power to the People one focuses on energy specifically, which is why CEP has been involved, talking about decarbonising energies.
So well worth a look. And that's available on YouTube?
They're available on YouTube.
Yeah,
Cornwall Climate Care.
Okay.
Is, I think, the account name.
Excellent. And once again, that will be available through our channels. So the third bit of evidence there is the Housing Decarbonisation Strategy for Cornwall.
Yeah, so another look at Cornwall kind of leading the way in developing the strategy. It's a practical guide at how you can decarbonise homes in Cornwall, giving people the tools they need to take those steps. very just so vital that a council is on board with the decarbonisation, and something that probably will be spread all around the country. I think Cornwall is one of the first in actually having a decarbonisation scenario for homes.
Okay, so how can we get in contact with you? How can we organise a consultation?
Well, we're readily available we've got a free phone number, 0800 954 1956. You can leave us a message there, give us a bit of details about your property and that you want to speak to the low carbon team. Otherwise on email, lowcarbon@cep.org.uk, and all of the information as well as all our future proofing your home guides are on the website, as well as a contact form and all the contact details. That's cep.org.uk.
Excellent. And that's wonderful. Just one more question to ask you.
Yeah.
If we could, what can we do today to make a better tomorrow? One thing.
You've got to start. It's always that first step that is the hardest. You have to make one move, whether that's, we'd love it to be a phone call to us so that we can help you plan that. But, there's one thing of all the things we've discussed today. There's lots of, get it in your head that you're starting a journey, and you need to take that first step. It could be a phone call to us. It could be digging the in-home display out of the cupboard. It could be turning a thermostat down. There's lots of options, but it's important to take that first step, because once you're on the journey, then you're on the journey, aren't you?
Yeah.
You're going.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's a great point, is to just get started.
Just get started.
Have a look at the website and go from there. Yeah, absolutely. Well, Stephen, it's been, we've had some fantastic information there from you. It's been great to have you on the show.
Thank you so much.
And thank you very much. Take care.
Yeah. Great. Goodbye.
That's it for this episode of Searching for a Greener Room. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Let us know what you think, who you'd like to hear from, any topics you want us to cover. Drop us a comment. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss an episode. See you next time.